Hey, it's Anthony and Tucker and Title, and we came to bring you our mid-year economic update. And as you know, we're both economics nerds, so we thought we'd bring you the big picture data.
Yeah, this is some good information that we waited till Fed, one of the Federal Reserves out of St. Louis, kind of update all their data. So we're including Q3. So we got some good data in here. So starting off the top, GDP versus debt. This is something that we always like to keep track on. It's a really important ratio for really economic growth long term. And we're actually getting a really good spot. We can see our GDP is spiking and our overall federal debt and that relationship is decreasing. So that's a really good sign. During COVID, we spiked. Normally that leads to insolvency and that creates big issues for countries long term.
Right. So all the Federal Reserve stuff that's going on, everything's kind of slowing the economy. This is all working to do exactly what they wanted it to do. So we're back in a healthier position.
Look at the blue line. See how it's spiking up? They're trying to make that blue line flatten out a little bit. That's why we have this unfortunate rate environment.
Exactly.
And speaking of rates,
here's the federal rates. You guys can see what's going on. National average right now is showing 7.5%. As you guys know, right today is probably closer to 8. But that's mainly for a couple of reasons. Tucker, why is that?
Yeah, so there's two big reasons why. Is 10-year Treasury notes, we know, is really a good measure to kind of track mortgage rates. And what this means is this really strong economic growth that we just came out yesterday of a GDP slightly under 5% for Q3. What that means is the economy is still doing really well. Consumers are spending. Businesses are keeping a lot of inventory on their shelves, which helps boost GDP going into the Q4. So what does this all mean? It means that rates are higher longer term because it's going to be a while until the Fed cuts. And so what that means is it's pushing that 10-year Treasury note higher, which also means mortgage rates. That's why we saw the jump from 2 days ago to yesterday, is because that our economy is looking so strong. People are going, oh no, Fed's going to keep their rates higher, which is that blue line. So we're going to see that blue line plateauing. We're not expecting any more increases this year from the Fed. It's going to kind of stay flat. So we'll start seeing this blue line plateau. But that's why our green line spiking up right now is because the blue line is going to be at that higher level longer than people were expecting.
All right, so we track a few other things nationally that really tie into this whole health of the economy sort of behavior. Look at this though, we're still seeing personal saving rates about as low as they get. Right? I mean, the real problem with this is they're always about as low as they get, right before recessions in many cases, or like people are running out of money, they're spending money on debt. So you can really see that back during the pandemic, the highest we've ever seen savings rates. Well, it's because we handed people checks.
And we couldn't spend anything.
And there really wasn't anything to spend money on.
No sports, nothing fun.
That's the problem is right now is people are still spending a lot of money going to football games and going out to eat and doing all these things. Well, that really has to stop. But people don't look like they're doing it off of excess of income. They look like they're doing it out of savings.
Yeah, so their savings are depleting down to help that lifestyle status that they wanted.
Or that they had during the pandemic.
And things are changing right now, so they're using their savings to dip in to be able to live that lifestyle.
Okay, so what about this one?
Okay, so this is great. We can just see how healthy our market is. And that's really just remember how fortunate we are to be in Colorado. We can see that green line is Boulder County, the red line right there is Colorado, and then blue is national average. And we can see how much stronger
this is per
Colorado. Yeah, this is per capita. So each of us as individual people, what type of what's our income on on the macro, on the average.
Yep.
And then you can just see how strong it is here in Boulder County, which helps fuel why we're able to have these high prices and have these sales that we do because we have really high income. Why does Colorado have a higher, more expensive income, or more expensive housing market? Because we have higher incomes and better paying jobs versus the country. So we're going to continue to see this. Just another good sign to see Colorado's doing great.
Boulder County's doing fantastic.
Even better, nothing new there.
Yeah, so unemployment rates, this also shows the same trends, Colorado and Boulder County. You can see that Boulder County's unemployment rates are actually starting to rise up a little bit faster than maybe the state or the national average. This is really common in Boulder County. You would always see this before other parts because we're heavy in tech, we're heavy in aerospace, we're heavy in all these other sectors.
We're heavy in real estate.
So that being said, the national unemployment rate, we're getting closer to that, but in all reality, like this stuff has a long ways to go. We're still really unemployed.
Yeah, and it means we don't have enough workers.
Right. So
this is telling us we don't have enough skilled workers for the jobs available.
Yeah,
and we're going to keep having this issue because it's demographics. Hey, how many people are being born and coming into the market, and how many people are passing away and leaving the workforce? And it's simple numbers, but it's over a 20, 40, 50, 100-year span that makes this happen. So it's really showing.
So right now, here's the problem.
We're coming into this.
The index is 100 when we're fully employed, right? That's kind of where we were pre-pandemic. Obviously, when you lay off a quarter of your workforce, it drops, and then we really crank back up. The problem is now we have more jobs than we have people working, and it's stayed that way. This actually is kind of one of those metrics that doesn't lead us to think recession, right? Because it's very difficult to go into a recession when people are willing to pay more and more.
And they're getting paid more and more, and then
and incomes are rising, right?
But this does actually show kind of why we had the inflation. We had to not we, but businesses were having to overpay sometimes for the skill set of that employee because they were so desperate, and there's just not enough employees, potential employees. And so this is where we jump into the state of Colorado. Our labor force participation rate among Colorado adults who are low on the older side has been rising over time and higher than the U.S. average. We have more folks older in age still working.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty bizarre how much that's changed. If you look at this by employment age over 65, 600% increase in the last 20 years. That means we went from 30,000 people working over 65 to 180,000 people over 65. So, and you can see it in a lot of the data where people are just working a lot longer because probably a lot due to 08 when a lot of them lost their retirement.
And we also have longer life expectancies as well.
Well, that's true.
That has been
Social Security in that time period went from 62 to 66. So that's national trend, right?
Yeah.
And then over the next 5 years, we are expecting 40,000 more retirements per year, assuming that increase of 55 plus.
Yeah. And what that really means is we're getting older as a state, and so eventually we're gonna have less. We're gonna start having more and more of our overall population not in that working age anymore. Now, some people may still work after 65, but we're gonna have less and less of that happening. So our overall workforce is gonna start shrinking a little bit. Relative to our demographics.
So check this out. This is where in the state that's happening most. I mean, I guess this isn't really surprising.
Look at Boulder County, look at Grand. We kind of understand this. This makes sense. Hey, the metro is doing well, and the western slope's doing well. But look at Weld. Weld is expected to blow up over the next 7 years for their working age population, because that's where there's going to be a lot of jobs.
I would say
and oil and gas is always
through El Paso, right on the Front Range, is blowing up. Right, we know that. Out on the western slope, also just incredible growth, and we know that's going to happen over the next decade. But it's really pulling population from some of those more rural areas. So that's the part. Now, here, this is the thing. This is why we talk about jobs, because jobs are people. I mean, this states it perfectly, right? If there are jobs, people will come. If there are no jobs, people leave.
This data is from the state demographer here in Colorado, so this is not our take. This is their economists from the state. We're saying jobs are people because it really is true. This is how it works.
Right.
If you have jobs, you have people. And our economy is doing so well, we have more jobs than people. That's why we continue to have net migration in, which is a very positive thing. Now, net migration is going to slow down, but jobs are people. So the more jobs we have here, the more people are going to be moving to the state for that job.
Yes. What does that mean? How is that happening? Where is that happening? Well, that median first-time home buyer is like 32 right now. That's the bulk of, or the peak of everything. So we have a bunch of people moving to Colorado for jobs, a bunch of first-time home buyers moving into Colorado, and eventually, in about a decade, that's going to start to slow down quite a bit because the baby boomers had children. Those children happen to be millennials, most likely, most of the time. That put them in this big bracket, right? And the baby boomers were the biggest population the U.S. had ever seen. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean to Colorado? What it means is those people who are moving here for jobs are in that millennial generation age. And it's way more extreme than most states. You don't really see a lot of net migration by age when they're older, right? People move to Florida. That's why they put it on the graph. People leave other states like California, and they're moving to places like Florida. You just don't see a ton of people over the age of 50 moving into Colorado. I mean, I think you definitely see some, but just not very many.
Mostly working here. When do people move to Colorado? Young adventures, the mountains, the schools, education, and also really strong job, really strong economy, really strong job market. That's why we see these young people moving to Colorado.
They have a take on this
that
too.
Blue line, like this is just so drastic. This blue line, and it just shows where our population, when they net migrate to Colorado, then we see that a lot of them don't leave afterwards.
Right. that's I think the big take too is people also still want to retire here. Maybe they leave the city of Boulder or the city of Denver and move to the burbs, but like they're not leaving the state. They're still part of the economy. They're still part of that situation. You can see it right here too. Colorado population by age, migrate in would be kind of expectations for 2030. You're still seeing so many working age people move in. But the other thing that we're expecting is we're expecting more net migration of those retired age folks.
Yep, and it's the net migration plus just the over time how we age through. Hey, the 55 to 65 is now going to be the 65 to 75, and that big cohort is going to keep moving across. And that's
This is it.
right here. Yeah, and so this right here shows is our total population change between 2020 and 2030. But really what you see is the retirement age of that 65, 74, but then that retired of 75 really plus is we see the people who moved here, you know, in the 90s, early 2000s for jobs, had their families or whatever situation, and now they're aging, but they're staying here in Colorado and aging in Colorado. And that's where we're also having this housing issue, which we're about to talk to about, is a little bit on the supply side.
Let's talk about housing because obviously we're all in housing and we gave you all this background information to really get into what we do.
And I have this knowledge behind all the slides we just covered is so when you're talking with folks, you just understand the demographics, you know what's going on, so you just have a base level to be able to communicate with them when you're working with a Google Tech or, you know, one of these other high income folks, or even just for your own knowledge of, hey, where do I want to be? Where do I want to look? What do I see?
What we expect a decade from now in real estate?
Who's my clientele? Oh, we're going to have a bunch of people moving into that older demographic who probably need to downsize. Not a bad idea to specialize or at least have that as part of your business. So you can use this as well for your planning.
Okay, so this is the base housing price index. This basically shows, you know, the average and median, and you can really see basically all transactions in the United States. So you can see that that gap between the median and average is still pretty decent, right? It's kind of spreading apart the farther we get, and that's created by a lot of different problems. But you basically can see that, you know, the average for the index is 500,000. We're well above the average in the state of Colorado. The median is closer to that 425 range. Here's Colorado, right? So this, I'm sorry, this is national. This came from AR.
I wish they had 4 million sales last year. That'd be amazing. Oh my gosh.
Okay, so 4 million total sales, which actually year over year is down by about 15%. 3.5 months of inventory, which is pretty well in line with Colorado right now. But the median sale, like I said, was 400,000. So year over year, that still came up. Remember, we had a tough last year, and nationally, we still saw 2.8 increase in housing prices, right? Because there's a housing shortage, right? If we didn't paint that picture for you in the demographics, there's a housing shortage because we have so many younger people moving to that working age and forming households. So even though we have a 15% drop in housing sales, prices are going up because it's a supply shortage. Now, take a look at this. This is housing inventory. Total housing inventory, 1.12 million houses on the market right now. Well, keep in mind there's 330 million people in the United States. So in perspective, it's not really that many houses for sale. Now, it's definitely been a lot better than that. I mean, I would say better, meaning there were more houses available for people to purchase, which is going to keep housing prices more affordable. So what about this?
So in our days on market, we are doing better than the country on our days on market for the median. Is it, you know, are we still at that 15 days like we were during the pandemic? No, obviously not. But we can see how we are doing much better than the country in our the speed of our market, the quality of our market. We're still having a much faster market relative to the country. Now, of course, every sub-market matters, and this is why we talk what's the most important thing in real estate: location.
And that's why we talk location most of the time. But for us to give you some big highlights, definitely.
We're very fortunate to be in Colorado. Is what we're saying. This is, you know, if we're going to be a realtor or title or anything of our financial industries or real estate industries, it's good to be in Colorado. It's a really good place to be right now. And this is huge.
Look at this
going into our building permits. And so right now we have our 2020 out for the most part, but then we have our 2022 and 2023 projected. Do you see that massive drop? We don't have that same drop in population change. We are still, and it will always be, underbuilt here in Colorado. So it's really important to understand that buying right now is, you know, it's a long-term investment, it's a long-term choice, but it just shows how underbuilt we are in Colorado.
Excellent. So this is another Colorado chart. This is total housing units versus households being formed. And truly, households being formed in Colorado has slowed down quite a bit. I think that's the important thing to understand short term. Is it going to stay that way? Probably not. But for right now, because of affordability, less people are migrating in, less people are actually forming new households, which means they could be living in joint households. You see, multi-generational housing becoming more and more common in Colorado. It really is not a cultural thing for us here in this country, but a lot of countries that have multi-generational housing forever. When housing starts to continue to slow, but net immigration continues to stay fairly flat, that just means that less of these millennials are actually moving out of their parents' basements. And so unfortunately,
Ask your friends.
that's called pent-up demand.
Yes. Well, I mean, and also ask your friends. Talk to, even look at your own situation. How many people do we hear post high school, post college, living with their parents? And it's becoming more and more common, and it's because of this the cost of housing is so high, and the cost of living can be so high.
Well, and you can see it. Look at the net migration in Colorado just over the pandemic. It was basically flat, and it's one of the only states that was flat. A lot of people were up, and a lot of people were down.
There's some major swings.
There's some major swings, but Colorado is just stable. I mean, I think we talk about it a lot. The stability in Colorado is a big thing.
Yeah, and now this is one thing to show about population. This is a little bit off the graph. We're also slowing our net migration. Isn't just because Colorado is less attractive. That's a part of it, but it's also because as a nation, we're also slowing down our birth rates. We just have less people to be migrating, right, especially of that age group of that 20 to 30 range that normally migrates to Colorado.
Right. Think why Colorado seems so young all the time, because we really attract the young.
And then we have really good retention.
And where are they going? Well, that's what this shows you. It says
where are the jobs?
It's where the jobs are, right? So Larimer County, Weld County, Boulder County, in the Denver metro area, all the way down to the Springs.
And we can see where we've had a lot of the rapid appreciation was based off of these same areas that had really high increases in the total population change.
Yeah, look at the left, it's probably not going to happen as much.
Yeah, if we look at to the left, we have, the Weld County and Arapahoe right there, Boulder County, Denver, all the way down to El Paso. A lot of real estate appreciation, but we also had a lot of population change. So that's how we can see that population change equals that. So if we're going to go back one slide.
You can't go back.
Sorry. Well, you see Weld County and the whole western slope, a lot of projected growth, a lot of more jobs. What does that mean? More appreciation in those markets.
Well, that's exactly why I put this one in here for all of our Boulder folks, since Tucker and I tend to, spend a lot more time in the Boulder County market. Yeah. That we wanted to show you what you can see here. Now, don't get me wrong, the local data is lagging quite a bit, but these are 5-year estimates and what's going on, and you can really see that housing builds in the area are way underbuilt. Right? 7,000 new households being formed every year, every quarter. I think it's quarterly, and then you're seeing like 1,000 to 2,000 homes being built.
And this is the thing, though, is there's a lot on the horizon, right? We're seeing a lot of construction here in Boulder, Longmont, Louisville, Superior. A lot of new construction coming up, but it's still not enough. So we just will have a little bit more of an equilibrium coming up, but it's just going to take some time.
Well, when was the last time we were even remotely closed? It was either 2018 when we built a lot, or it was back in 2011 when we had no one coming here, and it was for like one short year in the depth of the recession. Yeah. So I think you can just see this. It's a consistent issue. We battle this all the time in Boulder County. So let's talk a little bit about that whole stability conversation in Colorado and why we like Colorado. This is the quarter of basically national average, right? So nationally, housing prices went up 1.6% in the quarter. In the last quarter, housing prices in Colorado actually fell. Actually, take that back. They did not fall. They were up 0.7. So we are below 20% below the national average for housing increases. We did see appreciation, but we talked stability, right? But what about over the last year? Over the last year, we actually saw house prices decreased in Colorado just slightly, like 3%. We saw the national average, though, is a 3% increase. The craziest part is this is absolutely backwards from what we would normally see. Normally, you see the coast, you see Colorado, Texas, some of these places where they had dramatic increases in price, which is what's happened over years and years and years. And the Midwest has been evaporating. Well, what happened with this constriction of money and everything else is those places that were lagging behind actually saw people migrate to them, and they saw price increases by a little bit, and so they outperformed the rest of the nation. And you can see by the 5-year average, very, very different.
Yes, so you can see how the cost of money has affected this so much in the last 12 to 16 months. is in the 5 years, oh, we're up. We're looking good. We're
Yeah,
on
we're
average.
really similar
We're
with
on
the West
average.
variation.
That's 56% over 5 years. That's great. That's what? 11%, 11% a year. Whereas the Midwest, not as much. But then as it flipped, the cost of money got more expensive, mortgage rates went up. Hey, those areas that didn't appreciate as much appreciated more because they're more affordable. There's more competition now because there's a relatively better price.
Exactly. And if you look at it since 1991 when they started tracking this, the West and Florida have just been booming, right? And honestly, you could probably expect this to continue in these areas because these areas are where people are migrating to, right? People tend to be leaving California more and migrating elsewhere. Well, we've been seeing this, right? People are migrating to Florida. So of course, Florida has this huge increase in sales price. And it's a lot of cash buyers because they're retired age people, right? People who are financially stable, and it's still relatively cheap in Florida. And you've got all these jobs being created in the West. So when you see that and you see job creation, that's where you see all these migration patterns. And it creates this unaffordability that we're experiencing.
Now let's kind of jump over here, and now let's kind of dial down even a little bit more. This is from our friends at CAR. A lot of great statistics. And all of these stats are year over year. So this is something really nice to look at. As we can see, we are up on the medians. Our medians are up. So that means that middle of the market is moving. Where when you look at the average, it might look a little different. And that's because that super high end is overweighted. It carries more weight than it should on the average. That's why the median's so great, because it's the meat and potatoes. It's the middle. It's the meat and potatoes. It shows what the market's doing, not just what the really upper end is doing.
When we talk stability, this is such a good slide for this because the median is truly up still 2.8%, 2.9%, 2.6%, right? Every month we're seeing all these different metrics, single family, condos, all of it as just stable, right?
Yes.
I mean, I think that's the one thing is, did we see a little bit of price decrease over the last 16, 18 months? Sure we did, but we came off the highs we've ever seen. Yeah. People overpaid for stuff. And then now here we are back to stability, back to just plugging along, even at high interest rates. People are buying and selling homes, maybe not as fast as they were before, right? You can see even sellers, they've cut back almost 12% over the last year.
12%, but
in total new listings coming to market.
But the beautiful thing is, while we have 12% less new listings, we still have only down 5% in our pendings and under contracts.
It's largely due to that supply.
It's that supply issue.
That supply issue is so key in Colorado. That's why prices are going to stay high. That's why we're not going to see depreciation like some major metropolitan markets around the country in the next year or two. And we're just going to be here feeling.
We're plugging along.
We're just going to be slow and steady.
Plugging along.
Honestly, it's a really good sign for housing owners. And I think the big takeaway, if you want our biggest takeaway, buy real estate in the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, I really wish I could go buy a bunch of real estate right now.
Me too.
Because the market, there are great deals to be had. For sellers, if they can weather this storm, right? We talk about this in Boulder County a lot. Hey, if they're affluent enough and they can hold and wait to sell. Don't take the haircut.
Or buy another house and rent your place out.
Yes, even if you're losing some cash flow, the equity gains are there. And this is I was just having this conversation this morning. Look at the bigger picture. Look at the 5-10 year picture. The equity gains are there. That is where the real driver is and generator is of this wealth and appreciation. So it's year over year. Yeah, it matters. 3-year windows matter. But look at the 5. Look at the 10. And that's what we need to project out in is, oh my gosh, you can find a great deal right now. Yeah, these rates are painful for the next year to 2 years.
Your payments might be a little tougher than you would like, but in all reality, it's still way better.
You're going to make more on your long-term investment of this than you will, if you bought in 2 years at 20-30% higher. Well, would you rather pay now that little extra more a month to get that 20-30%? Or would you rather hopefully have enough money to qualify and pay that 20-30% in a couple years?
Are your incomes going to go up 20 to 30%?
I know my day job's not.
Mine's not either. So
that's why we're into real estate.
That's why we're into real estate. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Anthony with Land Title.
My name is Tucker Brock with Land Title.
Reach out to us if you need anything at all. Obviously, tune into the YouTube channel if you want more information. Like and subscribe. You'll see plenty of us.
Plug, Land Title rocks. You guys are the best.
Everybody, thank you. Bye-bye.